lovely to see this mix of people here, which I really didn't expect. In Port Melbourne last week, we didn't have a single person that I hadn't invited and didn't know, and to have a few locals and not so locals come here today is absolutely lovely. So thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, so writing a book is often likened to giving birth. I don't know how many times people have said to me it's like having a baby. I'd have to say this is by far the hardest pregnancy I've ever had. For a start, the closest thing I had to a midwife was Ian, who wasn't even at the birth of his own sons, because men were not invited in those years. And it's taken me almost 6 years to write the book. Now, 6 years is actually 3 times the gestation period for an elephant, and 8 times that for a human being. So if you think of it in those terms, it's a very long time. And leading up to the delivery, the birth, I worried about all the things that you worry about if you were having a baby. What will it look like? Will it have all its fingers and toes? Will people admire my baby? And how will my baby do in the world? And those were really the things I worried about. Then the day of delivery arrived. The book arrived finally, long after the due date. The cover was dark, and my face in the book was black. So I had to run around, talk to a lot of people, complain bitterly, say this isn't acceptable, and the whole thing is being done again. So the books that you've got actually today, I had printed here in a very short space of time, rather than I'm waiting for the ones coming from China. So, yes, so anyway, what stopped me from being very upset about all that was when I told some people, they just burst out laughing. I thought, okay, that's okay, we'll move on. I thought I'd say a little bit about why I wrote the book. I probably need to put my glasses on for this. But when people came to see me in my early years as a counsellor, I was really surprised to find that inevitably it was what they'd experienced in childhood and adolescence that was at the heart of what they were upset about, whether it was depression, whether it was anxiety, whether it was relationship difficulties. There was some kind of childhood trauma that hadn't ever been looked at. And it might have been a big thing, it might have been a bad thing. So I found that when they addressed these things, when we actually dealt with these things and they talked about them a lot in sessions, that they started to heal. And I wanted to find out, and to actually live much happier lives, I wanted to find out what they thought. Why did they think they got better? Because I couldn't really see why they got better. And so I invited them to write well, first I interviewed them, and then I said, why don't you write your own stories? And what I discovered was they wrote beautifully because they were writing from the heart. And they wrote better than I did. In fact, I can remember being worried about a particular man's story, thinking, if this is in my book and I don't measure up to this kind of writing, what's it going to look like for me? So, but it has been a very lonely task at times, because no one's writing it with you. No one could really help me, because it wasn't a book like other books. I couldn't take a book and think, I want to do that. I didn't want to write a therapy book as such. I was asked constantly, so who is your target audience? And if you want to be published, you've got to know who your target audience is. And this was the dilemma, because I wanted to write from both sides of the picture. I wanted to show what it's like to be a counsellor, and I wanted to show what clients really experience. And there really are not many books written like that. Generally, the clients' case studies are very brief. And if they're good, I am left wondering, well, then what? And what does this person, who is this person really? Including part of my own story also became important. And this again is something that a lot of therapists wouldn't consider doing. But if the clients could be honest and courageous and brave and actually tell their stories, because a lot of them are identifiable, then it just felt right that I did so too. It's not an easy read. And many of the issues in this book are really hard. They're painful, they're sad, issues that are still taboo in our society: suicide, abuse, sexual abuse. But I felt I couldn't leave them out. I wanted to leave some of those things out, but I just felt that I couldn't. That to write an honest book, I had to include those things. And so what the clients did, I think, was pretty extraordinary. About 30 plus clients have contributed their stories in the book, so I wasn't actually the only author, and I think that helped me hugely when I was just putting it together. They were prepared to do this, and so it was a shared experience. A lot of the clients actually came to the Port Melbourne launch, which was extraordinary. We had Martin Foley, the state member for Albert Park, launching it, and he actually said, it was funny, he said that he thought, I can do this, I can read anything, you know, and he was going really well in the book and thought, yeah, this is pretty tough stuff, but it's okay, it's fine with me. And the last chapter is on depth, and he said, I fell apart. My mother died when I was 7, and I realised I hadn't dealt with a lot of it, and it was really hard for me to get through that. But after we'd had the speeches, a lot of clients went up to him and said, I'm a client, I'm here, I'm in the book, you know, which I thought was absolutely great. And so really, I think that's pretty much all I want to say. I feel indebted to the clients who are in the book. Without their stories, there simply would not be a book. I couldn't write it without them. And yes, I think that's really all I want to say today. But I do want to thank all of you. It was extraordinary to see you buying my book, I have to say. I never envisaged a launch, certainly not 2 launches. So thank you very much indeed.